Hello and welcome to The Radical. I'm Christina.
And I'm Nicole. On our podcast, we delve into the roots of metaphysical wisdom.
That's right, Nicole. Our podcast is all about exploring those fundamental truths and practices that nourish your mind, body, and spirit.
Yes, Christina, we want to make metaphysical concepts easy to understand and accessible, especially for those who don't have a ton of time to do all the research.
Right? We'll do the research as well as share our experiences and perspectives, hoping to empower you, our listener, to find balance and magic in your day-to-day.
Inspired by the essence of the word radical, proceeding from the root, let's explore the roots of well-being and self-healing together.
This is The Radical with Christina and Nicole, two metaphysical girls in the material world. Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome to the Radical Podcast. I'm Christina.
And I'm Nicole.
Today in our podcast, we are talking about invoking source, prayer, intentions, mantras, affirmations, and that is just the title. That is just the things that we were thinking about as we were coming up with this topic for this podcast. Clearly, invoking source covers so much more than that. And we're going to talk about some, but I don't think we're going to talk about all of them. I don't even think that's possible, Nicole.
If the word prayer made you cringe, or if it made you feel a certain way, give us a chance. Give this a listen, because I will say that I get you. I get you. I do.
And I struggled with our topic last week because it was about self-limiting beliefs and self-sabotage. And I learned to reframe it. And then I learned about tools for how we can overcome. So with this podcast, Evoking Source, and how we communicate with Source, it made me feel feelings. And then I started researching the podcast and doing my definitions and then kind of like my common themes. And then I had like a sense of peace. And I enjoyed thinking about my relationship with prayer as a word, and taking back that word, looking at it at its root, and then we use it the way that we want to, not the way that we may have been taught or forced to or led to believe. Because it's just a word with a definition that we can use how we want.
Yeah. I think me and you are very much coming at this topic from a non-religious standpoint. But if you are religious, it still applies.
Yeah.
And if religion's not your cup of tea, it still applies.
Yeah.
I think we are taking this from a spirituality angle, and words like God and prayer sound religious. And we have done a lot of work on our journeys to make those spiritual terms when we use them and their meaning to us. So, yeah, just a little disclaimer, I suppose, that this conversation is for everyone, but it's not religious.
Yes. And it's from our points of view and the information that I was drawn to and the information that Nicole was drawn to. There's so much more out there. Segment 1, I have definitions. I have some basic overall definitions. And then Nicole in segment 2, when we're talking about more about our personal reflections. And I didn't look at her notes once again. So she will surprise both of us, or both of us. Like I'm like one other person is listening to the podcast. She will surprise all of us with what she's talking about today in segment 2.
I think I'll surprise myself also because I think to date, this is the shortest note page that I've prepared. And before we hit record, I said to Christina, I'm as prepared as I'm going to be.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those topics where what I say is just going to come out, kind of going on vibes, to be honest, because it is personal. There's a degree of vulnerability. Do I really want to share my very personal practices? But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Okay, then we'll all of us will be surprised.
Yes.
Segment 2. And then segment 3, message from the universe. I'm using the Wild Unknown Tarot deck by Kim Krantz today. It was calling to me. And this deck is my travel deck. It has a lot of fun energy in it. We'll see what the universe has in store for us. I'm going to get started. Now we can start conversating. Now we have done the introduction to stay on our structure. Now, the beginning of segment 1 with definition. The etymology of the word prayer. And the English term prayer is from the medieval Latin precaria, which means petition. And that is what pray means. It has taken on this additional meaning because of its use in religion. But you can use the word prayer without any sort of religious dogma attached to it. And the synonyms for pray, if you're just kind of like thinking about the use of the word, the synonyms are ask, beg, beseech, implore, petition, and call upon. You could use those words in place of, or in your mind, just reframe that prayer is asking, or prayer is imploring, or I like entreating, and calling upon. And these words all convey the idea of making a request to a like we say, like higher power or authority, but essentially you're making a request to an entity outside of, well, not outside of yourself. No, I don't want to say that. I'm going to just say making a request to a higher power. I don't even want to say authority.
Yeah, I realized once we hit record in the introduction that I didn't spend any time talking about the source part of our title. I do think it's worth spending a moment to talk about that because to me, source is bigger than any religious god and it includes all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you said prayer to you doesn't involve praying to a male deity.
Yeah.
So
See, we had a good conversation before we even hit record. So I was like, did I say that? I did say that. I said that just a little while ago. And that in a snapshot was one piece of my relationship with prayer.
Yeah. And my higher power source is bigger than a male or a female. It's both, depending on what I need. Sometimes I need my higher power to be more of the yin principle of the feminine energetic qualities. And sometimes I need that higher power to be more yang. So to me, it includes ancestors, my guides, my teachers, angels, the gods, the goddesses, Mother Earth, Mother Nature. It's like all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's room for everyone, everything, no matter what you believe. It's source. And we again get to decide what that means to us. We get to define source and prayer.
Yeah. When I was making my notes, I put in here higher power or authority. But since Nicole and I have been talking before we hit record, and now we're already on this pathway, I'm like, I don't know if I like either of those terms for my idea of source. Even in the time between making this document and to the point I'm taking about it, that I'm already being a lot more aware of what those words mean, because words do mean things. We shouldn't be tied to other people's understanding of source. Higher power and authority, or creative force, inward divinity. And then I wanted to say that it was outside of yourself. I don't even really believe that, because I think that we're all divine within. It's not even actually separate from you. Source. There's a lot on that, and we'll continue to rethink that as I continue down my list here. But it's a personal conversation with that source, with that divinity, with that power, that energy, whatever you are using to define. And generally, it's expression of gratitude, seeking guidance or messages or signs. And there's no, I believe this to my core, there's no right or wrong way to pray or to invoke your source or to communicate with your source. But essentially, you can find a quiet space, and you can be in a quiet space in a loud room. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a silent space. You can find a quiet space within yourself anywhere. You focus your mind and you speak from your heart. If prayer is new to you, or you're just wondering, like, where, maybe start there. Find a quiet headspace, focus, and speak from your heart. Okay. Prayer is an invocation, and it can be an act. Some people pray with motion or with actions, like speaking or moving. And it is to activate that connection or your object of worship, or that generation of source or creative energy. And it's deliberate communication. There is an element of consciously doing it, and then being aware that you're doing it. Another big part of prayer is for thanksgiving, for praise. I said gratitude. I'll keep saying gratitude over and over again, because that's a big part of what I feel like is my relationship with prayer. But depending on everybody's belief, like I said, there could be a element of looking for signs and guidance. Historically, the act of prayer is attested to and written about as early as 5,000 years ago. And I'll say, in my personal opinion, my mind, is that as long as there have been sentient beings, there's been prayer. So as soon as humans or humanoid or human-like, there's been a communication. There's been attempted communication with source, but written as early as 5,000 years ago. And most major religions involve prayer in one way or another. It could be, like I said, actions. It could be words. It could be quiet contemplation, meditation, whether it is personal, meaning individual, or if it's done in community, or it's done openly, like verbally, or you're in front of other people, or you're around other people. It's all in what works for the individual. There are scientific studies, and I spent a little bit of time looking at this, but I didn't go down this rabbit hole. There are scientific studies regarding the use of prayer most of it, well, as they like in my search, it was concentrated on like praying for other people or for healing or for intercession with like sick or injured people. And, you could read about those studies. They're readily available out there, and then you can draw your own conclusions.
Joe Dispenza did some work on that and released a documentary about, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. It might be called Source, but it's about it's like energy healing meets intention meets prayer.
Yeah, you could, like I said, listeners, the information's out there. You can go read it and decide for yourselves. It's like all things in the metaphysical realm. If you believe it, it's true. It's true to you. If you're getting better because somebody is praying for you, go with it. It's true to you. You can't be proven wrong, in my eyes. I'm sure some scientists and some other people have different opinions on that, but there's lots of information on it. Lots of people have been. It's just like the study of luck, or this. We did that. I can't get through one podcast without talking about the superstition podcast. We're talking about people believing they were lucky in a study of drinking something that was just water, but they believed it, so they did better, or you know what I mean. Then they succeeded at the trial. But anyway,
And I did verify the documentary by Dr. Joe Dispenza is called Source. And it's worth watching. It's fascinating.
do we need to start? You know how we were talking about where Nicole and I, listeners, are talking about books, like doing book reviews. Do we need to start doing movie and documentary reviews for podcasts? That would be fun. We'll just add that to the incredibly long list of ideas that I have and you have for podcasts. Okay. So definitions, like I said, this is a very nebulous subject. What I wanted to focus on was what common elements there are in prayer around the world, because the forms of prayer vary across religions and within religions and traditions, but the common thread. So I want to talk about common threads. First of all, a form of communication, which means we're trying to connect with the divine. And that is an expression of feelings, sharing thoughts, and also seeking and asking for guidance, asking for comfort, asking for help. But it essentially, at its heart, is a desire for connection. And forms of prayer, generally, different types. The first one that I've already talked about is gratitude and praise for the spiritual power, for the source. But then also, praise for it, but then also just gratitude for what we have and just saying thank you, basically. And whether you're speaking, meditating, singing, dancing, all of that is a way to express gratitude and praise. The other way that we were talking about was seeking help or asking for guidance, asking for blessings, and sometimes asking for very specific needs and desires. And that's okay. Your relationship with your source is your business. Don't ever let anybody tell you you can't ask for specific things, because that's not true. You can have whatever type of conversation you want, and you can ask for whatever you want. Don't start putting rules on my personal connection with my source. So gratitude, praise, seeking help. And then another major commonality is intercession. And this is what we were just talking about, praying for the sick and injured, and the well-being of others. So this is offered on behalf of someone else or other groups of people or other issues in the world. And I've already said there's so many different forms, and whether or not it's personal or private or communal, completely dependent on what you want. and how you want to participate in this. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit more after Nicole's segment. I started contemplating on my relationship with prayer and what I felt like I might want to share. And it was a really good exercise for me thinking about prayer outside of a highly structured, whether it's mantra or meditation, that I became aware of like a lot of times just throughout my day, I'm doing like gratitude stuff, like specifically saying thank you. I saw the moon last night and I was in awe, and I was like, "Oh, thank you." And I did it with intention. I was like, that was a prayer. Taking a moment to do that. There's no wrong way. And if we sit back and reflect, we might be surprised that we do this more than we think.
Yeah, I think we do it more than we think. I really like the idea of reclaiming prayer and
Mhm.
making it your personal practice and defining it for yourself. Like Christina, I looked up the original meaning of
Nice.
prayer and also saw the definition as making a request or a petition. And it wasn't until later
Mhm.
that it became associated with talking to a deity or a divine being. So I would say up until about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I did bristle and balk at the concept of prayer. But two things happened. And one is prayer and the concept of a higher power in whatever form are foundational aspects of many recovery programs, many 12-step programs.
Mhm.
And I also have heard teachers that I respect talk about prayer. And so I'm like, okay, if these women, these sort of mentors and teachers have a practice with prayer, but they're definitely not religious.
Mhm.
I want to know more about what they are doing. It made me curious because in my mind prayer was religious.
Yeah.
So in the last episode I talked about somatics and some questions that I learned for healing limiting beliefs. And those questions were part of a bigger somatic challenge. And so, this teacher that I have a lot of respect for, she teaches somatics, energetics, and business. This challenge that she put together, one part of it is a daily journaling practice. And each morning, you ask yourself 4 questions. And the first question is, what is my vision?
Mm.
Pretty broad. It's whatever you're kind of feeling in that moment. It can be your vision for the day, your vision for the next 5 years. And it's sort of whatever comes up, just go with it. And you journal about it. The second question is, why do I want this? And this teacher has a theory, I suppose, that desires are placed by the divine. So if we have this strong feeling that impels us to attainment, the idea is that the divine placed that desire there. So desires can't necessarily be wrong. I
Okay.
can think of some examples where I'm like, yeah, but what about this? What about that? But generally, these are like the things that we want to achieve and attain is kind of what she's talking about with desire. So we think about the why. Why do we want this?
Hmm.
And if desires are divine, then we're allowed to want them. We're allowed to want things like success and comfort and security and abundance. We're allowed to want these things. Even if maybe along the way we've picked up beliefs that, oh, I shouldn't want that. I shouldn't want the spotlight. I shouldn't want to make a lot of money. So we write down our why. Third question, what do I need from the universe/God to make this happen? And when I was doing this challenge and I read the third question, I was like, wait, what? What do I need from God? And a part of me was like, shouldn't I be able to do whatever it is that I want to do by myself? Shouldn't I be like fully capable, self-sufficient? Like I can achieve things on earth, right? But it was such an intriguing journaling prompt because it was just sort of placed in this list of questions in this like nonchalant way. Like, obviously, this is a crucial part to this challenge, to attaining our goals, to directing our energy each morning. Why wouldn't we include the divine? It just was, again, presented in this like very natural and obvious way where I sort of had to pay attention to it and take it seriously and really think about, at the time, my lack of relationship with source and realizing there's a lot that I cannot do on my own, and I definitely can involve source more. And having that relationship with source is beneficial.
Yeah.
Some of the prompts that accompanied that journaling question were what do you need to feel and who do you need to be? So if I don't have the confidence to ask my boss for a raise, or if I really want to learn astrology, but I cannot find the right resources or the correct teacher, those are the things I need from the universe/God to make my desire happen. I can ask source to put me in the path of the correct teacher for me. I can ask source for greater confidence. And that might show up as somebody recommends a book on building confidence. I don't necessarily believe when we pray, it's like talking to a genie, right? Oh, you need to read this book on confidence. Or now here's this teacher, but you're going to have to study astrology. Yeah. So that is sort of how I think prayers get answered. And the fourth and final question from this challenge was, what is the one thing that would stop this from happening? And that's where we begin to identify our limiting beliefs, which we talked about in the last podcast episode. What inside me is not a match for what I want. What inside me is not able to receive this reality. But I just really wanted to bring up this challenge as a whole since it's fit into today's episode and last week's episode. And question 3, just so casually, what do I need from the universe or from God or from source?
I think a lot of times we're hesitant to ask outright for things.
I think so too. And in my experience, I think that's because there's been so many like rules and regulations. And I've heard things like, you have to pray on your knees. You have to say, dear God and amen, or your prayer isn't heard. And you can never pray for yourself or you're selfish. Like, so you hear these things. And for me, I have internalized them. And within the last couple years in reclaiming prayer and making it a part of my daily spiritual practice, I've had to unlearn and dismiss what I've picked up from other people and come up with my own definition. Like we've been saying, like I am allowed to pray in bed. I don't have to go to a special spot, although I can, and sometimes I do, but I believe my prayer is still going to be heard. If I'm
Yeah.
not in that special spot, or, it doesn't. And sometimes, I also really like the concept of conscious contact, which I think includes meditation and prayer. But it's almost like no matter where you are and what's going on around you, it's connecting to that quiet space within you, like Christina said, and just having that moment.
Mhm.
And I don't think it has to be a formal scripted prayer that's
Mm-mm.
said.
Yep.
It could just be sensing into that divine connection.
Yeah. I mentioned about my moments of gratitude and how I'm connecting that, or I'm becoming more aware of that as my form of prayer, and then being just really mindful of it, about the moon, about my home, my my friend that I visited yesterday, just all the things. There's also my mind sometimes needs something to do, like a lot of people's minds do. And I have been in places where I was so full, like on a yoga retreat or on a beautiful mountain, like looking at something or being somewhere. I mean, I've also just been in an airport so full of happiness and excitement and love and gratitude. And I don't have the words to express it. And I am a chanter. I like mantras. I think that is appealing to my brain, which can be very airy and very busy, very vata for my Ayurvedic friends out there. And very, okay, Gemini. You guys know I'm a Gemini. So that airy busyness. And I find myself returning to a mantra, Loka Samista Sukhino Bhavantu, which is translated to Loka. It refers to the world or realm or universe. Samasta, and this is Sanskrit. Samasta means whole, entire, or all. Sukhino means happy, joyful, and free from suffering. And Bhavantu means may it be, may exist, so be it. The way that we translate it into English is may all beings be happy and free from suffering. This is the first mantra I ever learned in my first yoga training by my first yoga teacher. I think I was still active duty in the Army when I started my yoga training. And everything that I that I was learning in yoga was magical and healing and so profound. And I was just absorbing it in through every pore. I couldn't get enough of it. I needed it so much. And that mantra, Loka Samista Sukhino Bhavantu, just connects me to that moment when I'm in a place where I'm overcome with wanting to chant or pray or meditate. I go to that. And it could be intense joy, intense happiness. I've been scared, sad, lonely, miserable, and I've been chanting this. Because sometimes um my mind needs something to do or some way to connect. And so I am a chanter. I do mantras. And I didn't really think about that as my prayer until I was kind of doing this. And I'm thinking about when's the last time I was so overcome with happiness? I was so overcome with sadness. I was so overcome with other things. And I connect to that chant. And it has a personal story to me and a personal history to me. And you might find that what you chant or what you recite or what you sing or what you say is your prayer, is your mantra, is your form of communication, which prayer is communication with your source. So it made me aware that I was praying, I was communicating this way, which isn't a classically um, recognized form of prayer in my background, in my family traditions, in my what I was taught as a child. But I also want to say when I am this sounds really intense, but when I'm scared for my life or I'm in situations where I don't have the ability, like either I'm so stressed out or my mind is actively trying to solve a problem, or I'm actively doing something like walking or running or packing or whatever it might be, that there's no space in my brain to pray. Like in January, I had to fly home from where I was during that week that there was all those tragic air traffic accidents.
I had to fly home too that week.
I think, yeah, we were both traveling. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you and I discussed this, but that I was kind of reflecting as I was preparing for this podcast. I'm like, when's the last time like you really had a moment? And I was like, well, I had a full on moment. And I was like, what do I do? How do I be in this space? And what I started to do was you have to let go of control. If anybody's out there has listened to any of Alan Watts, any of his lectures, he is amazing, and I can't get enough of his lectures when I'm looking for inspiration. And he said about religion, it's a place to let go. Religion is a place for us to let go, not become confined, constricted, and controlled. So for me, in that moment on that plane, having all kinds of feelings and having all kinds of panic and anxiety and sadness and wondering what's going to happen, that I remember focusing all my understanding on the impermanence of life. And these events are out of my control. And I have to let go. And if it is, and then it's just so be it. If this is what's meant to be. Now, I can tell that story in reflection afterwards, but in that moment, it was very real to me. And I do believe that that mantra, my Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, when I don't have the words or I don't have the thoughts to frame what I'm asking for, what kind of intercession I want, how I just want to be grateful for everything I've ever received in my life, that you can't get it all out, that while you're reflecting on that you got to let go. Let go.
Yeah, my version of that is your will, not mine. Your will, not mine. And what you just shared brought me back to kind of two things. So hopefully I'll remember the second one. But I think I was adverse to prayer a couple years ago because to me, I had this belief that praying and relying on God or universe or source was a weakness.
Hmm.
And I said it earlier, doing this challenge with this teacher, I should be able to exert enough of my will to achieve my goals. I
Mm-hmm.
should have enough determination and willpower and self control and motivation. I should be able to do this. And if I can't, then that's a weakness on my part. And resorting to prayer is admission and acknowledgement of that weakness, which
Wow.
I now no longer believe, but that was something I felt and thought. And I have heard other people in the last couple of years sort of share this similar belief that I should be able to do it all myself.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, what I've come to believe is it's actually a greater act of strength to surrender to source.
Let go.
Because when you are trusting in what you can't see and having faith in something that isn't definitive, that takes more courage and strength. And the second thing that you made me think of, Christina, was prayer and meditation. It's a relationship. So the first time recently, within the last couple of years, that I said a prayer, it felt really awkward.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, am I doing this right?
Yeah.
What do I say? It felt strange. But prayer is a relationship, and I have over time, and sort of with practice, with repetition, I have formed my own prayers. And I've kind of like, I have these like one-liners almost.
Mm-hmm.
So Christina shared, so be it. One of mine that I've heard along the way is your will, not mine. Another one is I welcome you into my heart. Just come in, come in. That's sometimes like a mantra / prayer, because I do believe we have to ask for help to
Mm-hmm.
receive help. So I'll just say, come into my heart. Please help me is another one. But because I've forged that relationship, I also trust that my source kind of knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll say as a prayer, thank you. And for what? Because that understanding has been built.
Yeah. And we'll, as soon as we wrap up and start prepping for our next podcast, we'll think about 5 more things that we wanted to say, having to talk about evoking source and prayer, because this is huge, huge topic, multi-layered, multifaceted. This was just the very tip of the iceberg. And we're hoping that we continue to talk about it and we continue to recreate a definition that works for us around the word prayer and evoking source. Are we ready for the message from the universe?
I am.
I have 3 cards. A, B, or C? Card A is the 9 of Wands. Strength, stamina, and confidence. As 9s usually imply, your journey is near completion. But on this final stretch, you find yourself growing weary. Doubt and fear are running through your mind. The 9 of Wands asks you to rally your confidence and realize how far you've come. Lift your eyes and take a few more steps. Soon, all your hard work will start to pay off. This card can also mean resilience, breaking boundaries, manifestation, pushing past what is possible. And experience breeds confidence. If you feel resistant to this card, ask yourself, how can I change my course? Card B is 6 of Cups, memories, childhood, and joy. A card of beautiful implications. The 6 of Cups focuses on the magic and innocence of childhood. The roots of years past are alight with color and vibrancy. Look back upon them and get lost in your memories. Old friends may resurface and seek you out. All reunions will be joyful. Enjoy simple pleasure and wonder in all areas of your life. This card can also mean nostalgia, a gift, a visitor. Nothing is gone forever. coming home to what you love. The question you can ask yourself, how can I practice acceptance? And the third card, Father of Cups, diplomatic and open-minded. The Father of Cups has a truly unique and dynamic personality. He's the most feminine of all the fathers within the tarot and usually a patron of the arts. He's a dignified man who supports his family and community. The only thing holding this man back are his deeply rooted insecurities. They are vast and affect his personality in many unpredictable ways. This card can also mean grace, an artist, stability in stormy waters, emotional control and balance, and follow your heart. Oh, and celebrate all aspects of the emotional spectrum. If you're feeling resistant to this card, ask yourself, what can I bring to the surface?
We are recording this the day before the Scorpio full moon. So things will be coming to the surface.
It's very watery right now for me, so I'm not surprised. I have the Father of Cups and the Six of Cups. When I was doing my notes, prayer to me, and I had a lot of thoughts about my childhood putting this podcast together, because I'm like, where did I get these prayers? Where did I get this feeling? Where did I get this self-imposed self-imposed constrictions and rules that I have around prayer? And it's tied very deeply to my family and to my childhood and to how I was brought up. So I was thinking about my childhood a lot today. And here is the Six of Cups right here with us.
I hear a lot of people say, as they kind of start their spiritual journey at various points in their adult life, say, my higher power or my source is not the same as the religious God of my childhood. I hear that said so frequently, and that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, recognize it. It's still part of your mental landscape. But
it's also okay if your higher power is the exact same religious God that you grew up with in your childhood. But I think what's a really important takeaway is you get to make that decision.
We do. Listeners, thank you for joining us today and talking about this multifaceted subject. More to come on this, I think. We're gonna keep talking about this because I like this idea of taking back prayer and redefining it and giving it the definition that we want it to be.
Yes, reclaiming prayer. Next week, we talk about our 30-day affirmation challenge results.
Affirmations are invoking source.
They are. And my results were not at all what I thought they would be. And I'm excited to share them nonetheless. And I am also grateful that you listened in today. We love you. And we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Radical. The Radical is written and produced by Nicole and Christina.
Listener questions can be emailed to us at theradicalpodnc@gmail.com.
Our Instagram is The Radical Pod.
Music by Van Horton. His Instagram is Van Horton Music.